From Hollywood, it's Mike Douglas, People Now. Now, here's Mike.
Thank you, Dennis. Well, as a teenager, my first guest had it all. In retrospect, she might have had too much. A hit TV series, fame, fortune, and a very costly drug addiction that eventually caused her to leave the top-rated series One Day at a Time. Today, she's back on the set, and she's singing with her father, John Phillips, in the new edition of the MaMa's and the PaPas. She's Mackenzie Phillips. I've never seen you look better.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
It takes a great deal of courage, what you did. Was your father a big help to you, a big inspiration to you through all this?
He really was. I don't think that I would have gotten off drugs, at least not in time, if it hadn't been for my father. He was a big help.
Tell me, as a father of 3 daughters, how does a thing like that happen to a kid? Is it peer pressure? Does it just happen? Do you just try it because other kids are doing it?
Well, in my case, I think it came down to the access theory. As you said, there I was on a hit TV show. I was a star. I was 15 years old. I had it all.
Yeah.
And a lot of money. And I was living in a grown-up world. And how do people in Hollywood express their success, right? They buy big cars. They have big homes. And then when you get on the other side of it, they have big vials of cocaine, you know, and that's how they say, I'm cool, you want some.
You're generalizing now. I mean,
I'm generalizing.
Everywhere you went, literally, there it was.
Not necessarily just in Hollywood. All over the
country.
yeah.
Good.
And so there I found myself in the middle of this, being very vulnerable, and as I am, and thank God I still have held on to that vulnerability. I think it just made for a bad combination, and I was weak and got right into it.
God, you're honest. Is it as prevalent as they make it out to be out here? I mean, a certain magazine did a kind of an expose on it out here.
I would say that, of course, it's prevalent in Hollywood. There's a lot of money and there's a lot of pressure on the people in the business to be up all the time.
It's pressure business, sure.
Right, and to be thin and beautiful. And I think that has a lot to do with people getting involved in drugs out here. But it also, at the same time, New York City, Chicago,
sure,
everywhere. You can find drugs anywhere in the country.
Some of the places we don't hear too much about.
That's right, Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
There's a town. And nothing wrong with that town.
No, my grandmother was born there.
My wife is from Oklahoma City. I don't dare say anything about that. But I wanted to say, I read, you're 5'7", which is on the tall side for a young lady. You were down to 90 pounds. You must have looked like a large pencil.
Something like that.
I'm not trying to be funny, but God, that's thin.
Physically, I was almost very ill.
How much heavier are you now? What do you weigh now?
Ooh, what a bad question.
Oh.
No, that's okay.
More than 90 pounds?
Oh, yes. No, I gained about 40 pounds.
That's good, though. It looks good on you.
Thank you. I feel good.
It really does. And the young man you were cooing with there in the green room, is that somebody new in your life or somebody that we would know about?
Oh, that's a real good friend of mine.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, you look like a neat friend.
Yeah.
You had matching T-shirts on, as it were. How did you shake it? You know what my thoughts go to? You came on my show one time, a long while ago. You probably have forgotten about it. You were ecstatic. You were a kid. You had just bought your own home.
Oh, yeah.
And you said, and I also have a pet. And I right away figured it's going to be a poodle. And you said, I said, what is the pet? Tell them what the pet was.
I said, let me bring it out.
Yeah.
Remember, I brought it on. I went backstage and I got my snake. A 6-foot boa constrictor.
Yeah.
Shelley. And the baby boa's name was Byron, but he didn't want to come.
You don't still have Shelley?
No, my brothers sold them.
How does one care for a snake? I wouldn't know where to begin. You don't feed
take a little mouse by the tail and drop it in, close the lid, and run.
A live mouse?
They won't eat dead things.
Oh. But tell me how you shook this problem.
Okay, let's see. Well, I'd gotten to the point where it was either do something about it or die. And my father was arrested on a drug charge. He was facing 15 years in prison. And he realized that it was time for him to do something about his problem. He had a bad drug problem as well.
Oh, he was heroin, mainliner.
Yes. And he went into a hospital called Fair Oaks Hospital in Summit, New Jersey, which is an excellent place for drug abuse. And he kept calling me from there. I was living here in L.A. at the time. And saying, you've really got to come here. This could be so beneficial to you. It could change your life. I said, I don't have a drug problem. And there I was sitting there,
And you did have.
surrounded by drugs.
But you weren't just sniffing the coke. You were.
No, I was shooting and
shooting the coke.
Yeah. And he kept calling me saying, "Come on, you got to do this." And I said, "No, I don't have a problem." Well, finally, one day, he called, and I guess I was straighter than usual. And his voice, I heard something in his voice that made me believe him. And I got on the next plane, and I haven't lived in California since. I live in New York City now.
Mm-hmm.
That was 2 years ago, and I've been clean for 2 years.
That's wonderful. God, that's wonderful. Now, what happens to you when you pick up the paper or turn on the news and you see where somebody like a John Belushi has perished? I mean, you say to yourself, but for the grace of God, that could be me, you know?
Well, that, and also, if only people were more aware of the problem and not to be afraid to say that there is a problem and that they have the problem, that you can get help and that it's not hopeless. It's not hopeless. People always say once a junkie, always a junkie, or once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. It's not true. There is hope for everybody.
See, but what your father had to come back from is much more difficult than cocaine, am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, heroin. Well, heroin, they have a drug now to prevent that terrible withdrawal thing.
That's right. Well, heroin is a physical addiction. The body goes through withdrawal. With cocaine, it's a psychological addiction. Your brain thinks, I've got to have it, I've got to have it. But so my father had a harder time because he was literally going through convulsions and things like that. There's a drug called clonidine, which is used to lower the blood pressure. It's used widely.
By people with blood pressure.
Right. And now they've found a new use for it where it blocks out, it fools the brain into thinking that you're not in withdrawal. Somehow this drug that lowers your blood pressure fools your brain into thinking you're not in withdrawal, which is an amazing breakthrough for people who are addicted to heroin.
And you just did it, you know.
It was all up here.
All in the
for
mind.
me, yeah.
What happens now when you're around people who are on drugs and you know it the minute you see it? I know it the minute I see it.
I can always tell. When I first came off drugs, I found I could never be around anyone who was high. It was just too much for me. Now, 2 years into it, I feel stronger.
You know a lot more than I do.
Right. Well,
I've been there maybe and back.
Right.
That's wonderful.
I just didn't want to desensitize myself to it by being around people who do drugs all the time. But now, as I get stronger, I know I can.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to continue with Mackenzie Phillips right after this.